Hello, my name is Xyonane Segovia. I'm an assistant teaching professor at Arizona State University. My dissertation research focused on malaria, specifically looking at resistance evolution of the malaria parasite. Now I'm in a position where I teach various subjects, including evolutionary medicine, global health and evolutionary medicine, and then also biology. Overall, just finishing grad school was a big accomplishment to me because while you're in it, it feels like you're never going to finish and you don't see that light at the end of the tunnel. So just being able to finish was amazing. But I think my greatest success beyond grad school has been landing a teaching position here at ASU as a professor, which is amazing. I'm really fortunate that I got this position at such an early stage in my career because I didn't have a whole lot of teaching experience. So that has definitely been one of my biggest successes I've had postgraduate school. But the main one for me would be experiment failure. So for my PhD, my main goal was to culture malaria, the malaria parasite, which is a parasitic protist that causes malaria, and I had to grow that in a lab in a little flask. And in my lab, it was a brand new lab starting out. So we were the first PhD, the students that started with me were the first PhD students in that lab ever. And the culturing hadn't really been established within that lab. So I was pretty much on my own and I failed at getting it to work. I could grow it for a little bit and then the parasites would die, or I would get to where I could grow it and I could split the cultures. And basically, the goal is that you're able to split the cultures continuously, so you're able to always have a culture growing in the lab. And I could not ever get to that point. And I kept hearing this like, this should be easy. Why isn't it working? Other labs do it. This should be easy. Why can't we get it to work? And that was really hard to hear that because it felt like my failure. I was the one that wasn't able to get this going. There was nobody else there. And another part that made it difficult is that my lab was separated into two labs, and one dealt with like the parasite culturing and the other one dealt with mosquitoes. And that side of the lab was like doing really well and all of their experiments were working. And then there was my side where we didn't have any successes. And so it was really hard on me and I felt awful. And of course, like I mentioned before, I kept hearing, hey, this should be easy. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all. It wasn't growing. It wasn't working. And so I felt really confused. Like, if this is supposed to be easy, then that means that there's something wrong with me. I must be the bad egg and I must be the reason that things aren't working. It's my lack of skill set, lack of intelligence. Maybe I'm not meant to be a scientist. So it was really a huge blow to me. And I just thought it was my fault. And I thought it wasn't working because of me. And it felt really hard because it definitely increased my imposter syndrome and it started affecting all parts of me where it just started as it being like you're a failure in research. Well, now it like started spreading into my classwork and it started spreading into my writing and my presenting. And it was just a domino effect where I felt really insecure in one part and then it just spread. It just spread. Um, so as a whole, I just felt like I failed as a PhD student. I wanted to be a scientist, but I felt like I couldn't be a scientist, that I wasn't enough, or I didn't feel good or as capable as other students. And then outside of school, when people would ask me like, oh, you're doing your PhD, how's that? I felt like a fraud and I didn't want to talk about it because I wanted to mention how cool it was, but I was failing at it. So I didn't feel like I could talk about it. And I came to the point where I stopped talking about it. If people asked me what I did, I would just say a student and I wouldn't specify that I was a PhD student. And then my husband, I would get mad at him because he would always share that I was a PhD student. And so then I would have to explain what I did. And again, I felt like a failure. I felt like I didn't have the right to tell anybody what I was doing because I was failing. Um, so it set the tone for my remaining time in grad school and completely set the tone for the rest of my PhD. So the entire time I felt like a failure. I felt like an imposter to the point that even when I graduated, I still felt like I didn't really get my PhD, that I got like the easy way out type of thing or that I got it out of pity because people felt bad that I kept failing at experiments. So yeah, it doesn't feel like I fully earned it. I honestly was very bad at coping and I had unhealthy coping mechanisms. It's hard because when you're in grad school, I think in order to have healthy coping mechanisms, you need to be able to dedicate time to yourself and have your basic needs met before you can have these basic healthy coping mechanisms. And when you're in grad school, that's really, really difficult. I did grad school with a family, so we weren't financially stable. So finances and basic needs weren't being met. And I didn't really have the capacity or time to really put effort into having healthy coping mechanisms. I did go to therapy and took medication, which really helped. I also tried to exercise, but I think that helped. The thing that helped the most was talking to other students. So when I got into part of being in the mental health committee for Seoul's e-board, I liked that, and I was able to see that other students were struggling as well, which was really, really helpful to me. It's kind of sad to say that, yeah, watching other people suffer was helpful, but it was more a level of, oh, you're feeling this way too. I thought it was only me, and I thought at the time that I was the only one that was like failing and the only one that felt like I was a failure because of the environment that I was in and the lab that I was when it seemed like everybody else was succeeding. So it was really nice to see that there were actually other people who felt similar to how I felt, and there were a lot of them. And I think that the best thing that I found for coping was just listening to other people's experiences and being part of that group where we could share those things and be vulnerable with each other. So, listening to other people and talking to other people really helped me ground myself a little bit more. From this experience, I learned the importance of vulnerability, the importance of sharing and communicating in science. It's something we don't do, and I think it's something that needs to happen more often. So I took a lot of value from talking to other people, whereas before I was very recluse and very introverted and felt that if I was ever feeling anything, that I should keep it to myself. I think that grad school opened that up and demonstrated that it's important to talk about these things because you never know if someone else needs to hear it. And sometimes I needed to hear it a lot. So, because grad school seems to be an area of perfection and like really, really high achieving people, it's nice to hear, like, oh, you feel this way too, and you're incredibly intelligent and capable, which in turn might mean that I'm, still intelligent and capable, even though these things are happening to me. So, in terms of coping strategies today, now I do a lot of emotional regulation to practice self-love and compassion. I'm not trying to like fix myself, but just trying to be more understanding. I know that I tend to have a really critical point of view of myself, and over the years, I've learned to be more compassionate. But it's almost like during grad school, I wasn't able to tap into that compassionate self. And when I graduated, it became easier. So I've learned to understand and be aware that the way I think of myself is really critical and very unfair. And as long as I'm aware that I'm being unfair and like untrue about myself, then I can easily move through a lot of the self-doubt that I have rather than just believing it. I don't consider this so much as advice, but just for them to understand that failures are normal. And I know that faculty don't talk about it enough, but they've failed, and every single person on this campus that has a PhD behind their name has failed at some point, and failing is such an important part of being a scientist. In fact, it's an essential part of being a scientist, and without failures, many of the things that we know today wouldn't have happened. There's so many stories of experiments failing and the person discovering something else or having to do it again. Failing is such an integral part of science that I'm surprised it's not pointed out more often. And it's not part of presentations when it should be. So for anything, I just want grads to know that failures can be good. And you move forward from it, you learn from it. You learn so much more from failing than you do from succeeding. And one more thing that I think is important for grad students is to find other grad students to talk to, whether it's groups or events where you can chat with others about your difficulties. You shouldn't have to face difficulties alone, and it should never be internalized to just you. You should have someone to vent to about anything, about your PI or whatever it may be. Like, have people to vent to, people you can trust, multiple people to vent to about these things, and connect with people outside of your lab and really try to vent and try to complain as much as possible. Like, it's healthy to get some of these like negative feelings out. And I wish I had been doing that since the beginning, but I really didn't find my people to kind of vent to and talk to until kind of towards the end of my PhD. Um, so, but it really helped me not feel as alone, and finding them at the end really helped push me through and help me complete my PhD. Thanks for watching Failsafe Science. My name is Xyonane Segovia, and I hope my story helps graduate students feel less alone.